times when the skies is gray. Them sour lemons, we turn them to lemonade. Turn rain to sunshine, elevate to one mind. Demonstrate just one time. Come together and combine. The economics we showing. Industries we moving. In the streets we growing. Turn a black hole into shimmery and golden. Self-esteem perfect. Give a child dreams, cause you definitely deserve it. I don't wanna lie no more. All I want's the truth for you. All I want's the truth for you. I don't wanna lie no more. All I want's the truth for you. All I want's the truth for you.
The Truth for Youth Foundation, an association created for the betterment of all youth, all cultures, ethnicities, and backgrounds. Our fight is to equal the playing field for youth whose ancestral history and cultures have been left out, misunderstood, or misrepresented in the environment they are subject to learn and be evaluated in. We want to raise awareness and funds that can go toward programming and curriculum that boost individual growth, self-esteem, family structure, community development, and maintenance.
What's up? How y'all doing today? Welcome to the Social Climate. I'm your host, Fawn Nanji, your social climate analyst. And I got a nice little shirt on here.
Ian Fawn Jr.
That's right, got Fawn Jr. over here. We in red today, we're matching. My shirt actually says, I survived the toilet paper crisis. Remember when they had us locked up and we had to buy all those supplies?
No!
Yeah. Dad had all the toilet paper and we had food stashed and we had canned goods when this pandemic started, and all these things that we had to buy come from the ability to have manufacturing, right? Manufacturing, the plant. George Washington Carver, the great old innovation. Okay, during this series I'm going to be covering different things. We're going to be looking at 4 things I think really rule and control the world. Politics, economics, religion, and war. Today we're going to talk about politics and economics. Mainly economics. We're going to deal with economics today. So listen up, pay attention. Hope you guys enjoy it. We're going to jump in different areas, different time periods and stuff like that. So just bear with me. Bear with me. I mainly want to kind of deal with the unions and these great, wonderful unions that we have. Sometimes they've been really, really, really good for America, and sometimes the unions, have been not so good, and kept other people out of opportunities. And we'll talk about all that. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now, looking at a long, long time ago, whether it was in Africa or Europe, either or, there were a lot of kingdoms. I'm not sure if you were aware, even in Africa, there were great kingdoms and empires where they had common people and you had like more royal type people or elite type people. And so in Europe, they called it lords and the serfs. You guys ever heard of that? So you had your lords, your landlords. That's where the term landlord comes from, right? Pay rent. The landlord beyond you, slumlords or your landlords that ain't doing the best, to maintain the property and stuff like that. The tenant will say slumlords. So back in the day, you had your lords. So you probably had some lords that were real, vicious and just kind of cold-hearted. So you had the people, the peasants or the serfs, so the people who were living on the land and were tilling and tending the land. Now these landlords actually were the owners of the land, but they gave rights and they gave certain privileges to the people who were the serfs, and what they had to do was provide a certain amount of resources on that land. They would work the land, and then whatever they would make, they would give to the kings and queens and the lords, and the lords would thereby, that was what the lords would use to create their bounty, their profit, and thereby being able to maintain the region that they had and run their business and maintain the economics of the area. And so the peasants, serfs, and serfs were also just left to have whatever food that they could gather that they didn't give to the lords and serfs to maintain their living, and then, you know, take the land and live off the land, make themselves a home and that type of thing. But they didn't really receive money or anything monetary from the lords when the lords took their resources and took their foods and different things they grew. They didn't get any monetary value for that. They just were allowed to have the land and live on the land. They still had to grow and make food for themselves to live. And so when that started to change is when you had specialization. You started getting specialization, and nobody really talks about this. I think a lot of this may have came when a lot of the Moors and some of these other people, you had also your Jewish people, and you had Genghis Khan. You had so many different people come into Europe, and with different sciences, different crafts, right? And so they began teaching how to corral, how to clothing, certain products, gunpowder, began like a manufacturing. The first big boom was like the steam engine, you know, and it kind of got people traveling a lot more. And so with travel, trade became better. And from then, the age of science pushed it into, like we said, more skilled things. And when you look at the skills, they started using terms like craftsmen. So you had like a blacksmith, a steelsmith, and a lot of people still have these names, you know what I mean, on the end of their surname, because it indicates a specific trade that they specialized in, right? Economy. And so if you were a landlord, you know, it'd be probably easier for you to pick up a skill and learn one of these skills that was being brought in by these immigrants or these people coming into Europe. And if you were able to pick up the skill, you became a blacksmith. And then your children became blacksmiths. And the children's children became blacksmiths. And this became like, you know what I mean, a way of enfranchising your family, your generations, because you would teach the trade and pass it on down the line. So now if you were a lord, you may have had the ability to do this. If you were a serf, you really didn't have too many skills other than the farming you were doing, or have resources to get iron or other craft tools to engage in learning how to do this to be able to pass it down to your generation. So the serfs were in a tough position. And so the lords were able to maintain their status, and also a lot of the people who may not have been in the higher class or were not quite peasants or poverty, some of these people were able to be craftsmen and then pass on apprenticeships to their next generations. So this was the economy of the time, and people did what they did. If they were a hunter, you taught your child how to be a hunter. If you were a preacher, you taught your child how to be a preacher or a teacher. All these different things. The apprenticeship was the way of the time. That's how the economics was working. I'm going to show you a little chart here that I have that kind of just depicts that. Right off here. So you take a look here. Okay, you got your lords. You have your serfs. And then serfs, if you had opportunity, you would love to have a craft. Okay, the lords were able to just come on down here and be able to get a craft. Okay, but the serfs, they struggled to try to get that. And then if you were able to get a craft, then you had an apprenticeship, you could pass on down the line to your family. Notice I have serfs circled here in red because a lot of them are going to get into migrating to the Americas, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So now this is old Europe. Now as we look into the America, how the economy trickled into the Americas, who were the lords in America? When our country was being founded, even after it was founded, and time started passing after the French Revolution and the Revolutionary War, right? Cotton was the king. Cotton was the king of the South, right? Cotton was king. And up north was the manufacturer, right? And that's the next part of the Industrial Revolution, when you start getting into the manufacturing and the plants, right? Mass production. So we had the steam engine era, then it went to the age of the science revolution, then mass production. So now we're looking at America. We're at the point where there's mass production. Down south, cotton is king. Okay, so they had the people working on the plantations, so many pounds of cotton. I mean, cotton ran the world. When I'm telling you, cotton, America down south, cotton was king. That's why they wanted to separate, because they didn't need the North. They had so much money coming in, from free labor from the slaves. So when you look at the landlords and the serfs, at least serfs got to, they got to live on the land. We can compare now. Now you have the plantation owners and now the slaves. So the landlords now become the plantation owners, and the serfs are kind of like the slaves. They brought in free labor from West Africa, and the ones that they could submit under slavery, the natives that were already here that they could submit. So now we get to that second part. Okay, where in the North has manufacturing and industry, and the people who work for the manufacturers are the laborers and the workers. And then down south was the plantations and the slaves. Now there were more industries, but we're talking about what ran the economy, what was running the economy at the time. So as you look up here, you got your plantation owners and your slaves. All right, then you got your manufacturers and your labor workers. Okay, notice I had the slaves here in the circle, just like I had the serfs. I'm sorry, over here, just like I had the serfs up top over there. I got the slaves over here, because just like the serfs, they want to escape. They want to be able to escape to become manufacturers. So you look at things like the Underground Railroad and that kind of stuff, the Great Migration. And during these times, you had groups that, when the Civil War ended and slavery was abolished, they didn't want to lose all that free labor. Okay? They wanted to keep their serf system. They were like, what? So I'm just supposed to lose all this money, right? And all these people that had been working for me for free, I'm now have to pay them. Now, mind you, the slaves had all the skills. They were like the craftsmen because they were doing it all for free. If a tire broke, master got the slave, right? If something needed to be fixed in the house, master got the slave. Need to be an addition built on the house, master got the slave. Who was driving the car? The slave. The car broke down, slave had to fix it. So built the church, okay, knew how to craft wood, carpentry, all those things. So the slaves had a lot of skills. They were doing all the labor for free. So this was a big, big problem when slavery got over, because now you have a whole group of people who are about to be into the economic system, looking for jobs, wanting to work, and all this kind of things. And a lot of people didn't want to lose out in free competition, right? This person's working for free. He works hard. He's been working 18, 19-hour shifts his whole life. Working hard is nothing for him. He's going to break his back to make that nickel. They were making, the inflation and different things like that. And they weren't making that much money back in the day. But so that went a long way, though, a nickel and all those things. So they weren't getting as much money, but that money went further along the way. So we're going to look into this history book now real quick. And so the history book, I was looking at number of high schools increased from 100 in 1860 to 1,200 in 1914. Despite the increase, many teenagers did not attend high school. Boys often went to work. The majority of the high school students were girls. This is straight out of the history book I use, okay, U.S. history. All right. Now, so mind you that. So like I said, I'm not making that up. All these workers were getting pushed into the work field, the manufacturing now, and they wanted to get paid. So there was a gentleman by the name of Samuel Gompers. Okay, he decided that he wanted to protect his jobs and the jobs of a lot of the European workers, or who had to compete with these slaves that were just freed. And so he started what was called the American Federation of Labor. All right. Now, during these times, unfortunately, was Jim Crow and black codes. So if you were a free black person, even though that slavery was ended, they created a lot of laws that ended up making you a fugitive. Then they had a fugitive fugitive laws that said that if you were a fugitive, you get caught, you get thrown back into slavery and basically become like a sharecropper. And they had black codes, which restricted you holding property. All right, so you couldn't have property. So that kept you as a worker. So even if you're not a slave, you're only going to be a laborer. You couldn't own property. Black codes that stopped you from teaching. You couldn't teach. Preaching. These are all things that would help you give whatever your apprenticeship was to the next generation. Those were all illegal for blacks to do. Okay, travel restrictions. You couldn't travel across two neighborhoods. Maybe during night, they would take your week's pay or arrest you for a week. That literally would bankrupt you. And then if you didn't have a job, it was illegal to have a job. Okay, now if you just got out of slavery and you never applied for a job, you don't have land, you don't own anything, where are you supposed to have a job from? And so they were throwing people in jail just when slavery was over for not having a job, literally. And so for the first 2 years, before Reconstruction started, it was literal hell down south for those so-called black people. Okay, but the unions came out, and the unions were there to kind of protect the people who, as the down south was, under Reconstruction, was to protect the jobs of those people who were in power, so they could maintain and stay in power. Say now, these unions were created, and from the unions, as I spoke of, they had white-only unions, and then on top of that, they had Jim Crow and black codes. So that's the next part of our map right here. So as you take a look, we have labor unions, okay, manufacturing. All right, you have your unions, labor workers, okay. Then you also, you have your white-only unions. Then you have your Jim Crow, your black codes, okay. Now you start getting into incidents like Tulsa, Oklahoma, okay. Now, you have black people and so-called black people started to really build their own cities, and some of them were still able to be successful. It didn't matter what you did. I mean, these people, they had skills, so they were able to start their own cities. Okay, so sometimes their cities were lit up, burnt on fire, and these people had to move. They called it the Great Migration. So many cities and so many people's homes were destroyed and burnt from all the torture and lynching that was going on, that the Great Migration took place. All right, and during the Great Migration, these people still couldn't own major property. So a lot of people were forced into ghettos because of redlining and different stuff like that. Now, during this time period of the Great Migration, when slavery ended, there was a major push for immigration, if you're not aware. So immigration was going on. So you had a lot of people. Here's where we're going to get back up to the top of our board. These serfs that were coming in from Southern European countries, if you saw my other video, I talked about how these groups used to be called the N-word back in the day. These groups were brought in during the Great Migration period, okay, and they were given land, okay. They were given land to own, to take care of, under something that was called the New Deal. Okay, immigrants got land deeds, and this was able to create wealth. And if you take a look here, how the economy works, if you look on the other side of the board, at the same time these other people were who were free from slavery, were looking for opportunity, were getting their cities burnt down, migrating, and also having difficulty up north trying to fit into the manufacturing system. Now, they were not in slavery, but manufacturing system that they were in, a lot of them could not own homes. A lot of them were forced into areas that they weren't able to get loans and other type things, such like that. And so it's very unfortunate, but just a quick little breakdown that took us all the way from Europe to the Americas. Now, just a small note. I don't know if a lot of you knew this, but in Africa, a lot of people think they were just like jungle and kids with fat bellies, and the Red Cross got to go feed everybody right. So I got a picture to show you guys. Yeah, when I used to watch TV as a child, they would show me Africa. There'd always be people running around with no clothes on, no cities, right? I had to get this map right here. Y'all see this map? Beautiful map of continent of Africa. If you take a look, like, there's all these cities. All these cities I never knew existed. Outstanding, magnificent, beautiful cities in different countries. You see that?
Like and subscribe.
Y'all see that? Make sure y'all like and subscribe. So get yourself one of these, man. It'll motivate you to see some of the different cities that are in Africa and different countries. You know, you got Egypt, you got Nigeria, you got Cameroon. Okay, you got South Africa, you got the Congo, the Congolese, you got Ghana. All right, so many. Okay, just wanted to show y'all some of the great cities. Okay, make sure you guys do subscribe, hit the like button. If you have any questions, get at me. If I did miss something, let me know in the comments. I'll cover it on something else. But economy is important. Economy and wages are important, and so make sure you're aware of what's going on. You know, because you don't want to get caught up at the bottom of the system. You want to be able to find a way to be an owner of something. You know, long term. You know, instead of being a worker, you want to be the person who owns the place that people are working at, so you can get residual income and these type of things and everything. So just a quick little review for you so you can understand how economy can interact with politics, because the economy changed. Okay, policies started to change, and you know, people were putting in policies that affected the economy, because if there are rules saying that you can't work at a certain time or you can't cross a neighborhood, how are you going to go make money? If there are rules saying you're not allowed to be a teacher, you're not allowed to be a preacher, how are you going to pass this down to your next generation? How are you going to pass down your culture or what it is that you're teaching your kids? All right, so that is very important. So make sure that you take a look at that. If you have any questions, let me know. I just wanted to touch up with you guys on one of the 4 major things I like to cover: politics, trade, war, and religion. Just taking a quick hit on politics and trade today. We'll get into religion and war at another time. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. We'll check you guys next time on the show. All right. If you have any questions or you have anything you want me to talk about, please hit me up, man. Let me know. Give me a call, and I'll be with you guys. Leave me a message. Thank you very much.
We bout them good times when the skies is gray. Them sour lemons, we turn them to lemonade. Turn rain to sunshine, elevate to one mind. Demonstrate just one time. Come together and combine. The economics we showing. Industries we molding. In the streets we growing. Turn a black coal into shimmery and golden. Self-esteem perfect. Give a child dreams, cause we definitely deserve it. I don't wanna lie no more. All I want's the truth for you. All I want's the truth for you. I don't wanna lie no more. All I want's the truth for you. All I want's the truth for you.
The Truth for Youth Foundation, an association created for the betterment of all youth, all cultures, ethnicities, and backgrounds. Our fight is to equal the playing field for youth whose ancestral history and cultures have been left out, misunderstood, or misrepresented in the environment they are subject to learn and be evaluated in. We want to raise awareness and funds that can go toward programming and curriculum that boosts individual growth, self-esteem, family structure, community development, and maintenance.